Hey guys, I'm back with another pool plan video, and this time around I'm gonna cover two arcs, which is the Ashe and Dark Knight Cecil's FRBT arc. You can refer to the cropped infographic on the left hand side, which was derived from the thewereotter's global forecast to see which banners and events these are. And as always, I'll include a link in the video description to the full global forecast as well in case you are interested. And there will also be timestamps provided, so you can use those to skip ahead to the event or banner that you are most interested in. As always, before heading into the banners, I want to give a quick recap on how I did in terms of resource spending in the last two arcs. And in this video, I'm covering two different arcs, which is the Iroha FRBT arc, because I did not cover this yet. And I'll also be covering the Penelo, which is our global's 5th year anniversary GL first arc as well. I did save quite a lot of resources in Iroha's FRBT arc. There were only two banners that I pulled on. The first was for Makina's FR and the second was for Fusoya. In total, I spent 160 tickets each for a total of 320 tickets, and that got me Makina's FR and got me all of Fusoya's gear, including one copy of his FR as well, but I did not actually max it out. I just left it at 0 out of 3 max limit broken. Coming to Penelo's arc, the first two banners was of course the ones that everyone was really hyped for, which was Global's 5th anniversary. And as you can see, I went in pretty hard for Penelo's FRBT. I actually started off with tickets. And big disclaimer here, I didn't spend it all on one banner. I just started off on the banner with Ardent, and in 730 tickets I actually pulled until I got 4 copies of Ardent's FR and 3 copies of Penelo's FR, but no Penelo BT. So then I switched to the other banner and spent gems, and in 75,000 gems I got 3 copies of Tidus FR. And all this was actually quite useful for me because I actually skipped Tidus and Ardent before, so I guess although I did spend quite a lot, getting multiple copies of additional FRs is pretty sweet. Unfortunately, even after 75,000 gems, I still did not get Penelo's BT weapon, so I just ended up biting the bullet and spent 50 BT tokens to get her burst. The next event after that was Jessie. And at least for Jessie's event, I was very lucky, I have to say. I actually got all her gear, including her force weapon, in just 60 tickets. And in those 60 tickets, I also scored Snow's burst weapon as well, which was a burst weapon that I was previously lacking. So I guess this made up for the bad luck I got on Penelo's banner. On top of this, during the free multi-pool on Jessie's event, I actually did score a free Penelo BT, and this is one of the reasons why I generally don't recommend people spending their burst tokens until the arc is over, because you never know when you might get lucky and score the BT. In any case, what's done is done. Finally, the last event was Size, and I was contemplating skipping this event, but I really wanted to try how Size and Penelo can synergize well together, and they are actually pretty good together. Not to mention, of course, Size is a great solo for Dare to Defy Stage 3 and her own Shinryu event, so I ended up just going after her, and I did get pretty unlucky, so to speak. I had to spend 480 tickets just to get one copy of Size FR. But I guess it maybe evens out the very good luck that I got on Jessie's event. Overall, in this particular arc, I spent a grand total of 1,270 tickets, 75,000 gems and 50 BT tokens. Alright, so coming to the first event in Ashe's arc, which will be the Spiritus World of Illusions Ramu. First of all, one big disclaimer regarding the banners on the right hand side of the slide. These banners were derived from the JP version of the game, and we do know for sure that in GL we are going to get different secondary featured characters, but at the time of making of this video, there's no confirmation or announcement yet on which characters these are. So because of that, for this event and the next, I'll be focusing mainly on the primary character on the banner. In this case, it will be Ashe. On this event, Ashe will receive a rework across her entire kit. Her S1 and S2 and EX are mainly going to be bumped up in terms of damage. Her LD, upon use, will restore 1 skill use of her S1 or S2. Her Queen's Order, I'm not sure whether this is something new or not, I think it is. It is now going to be instant and free turn, so you don't have to worry about wasting her turn doing that. When she buffs her allies with the Queen's Order buff, the Queen's Order buff on the allies also has a true damage component now, which is very similar to General Leo's LD Call ability. On this event, Ashe will also get a new burst weapon, and her new burst weapon provides quite a nice set of offensive stats that complements her role as an Aura bot support. For example, it has the Brave damage and Brave cap up plus 50%, 20% HP damage cap up, and Stolen Brave overflow plus 30%. But that's not all. While Ashe has her BT aura up, it also has the additional effect that will change HP healing received to Brave Battery if you are at 100% or more HP. This is going to be very relevant for her kit because on top of this, her BT aura also allows her to do one additional follow-up attack at the end of her turn. This follow-up attack not only does very nice damage, it has 3 HP dumps in total, but it also heals the entire party for 80% of the HP damage dealt, up to a cap of 50% of that character's HP. This means that Ashe now functions as a very reliable healer as well. And when you combine that with her BT aura that allows you to convert healing to Brave Battery, this means that if you are already at full HP or more, this healing isn't wasted and she then turns into a very reliable Brave Battery / Aura bot support. Going to Ashe's Force weapon, upon use of a Force attack, it will buff all allies in the party with 1 turn of Queen's Order. Her Force effects is whenever you do a Thunder or Holy Elemental attack, you get 20% each, and this should not be a problem because Ashe herself will enchant the entire party with both of these elements, so as long as you're doing a non-elemental attack, you should be meeting the first 2 conditionals. The third conditional is pretty generic as well, which is as long as you end your turn with 4 or more buffs, you get a plus 20% as well. All in all, as long as you can put together a party that doesn't have other elemental attacks in their kit, you should be getting the full plus 60%. And although the force damage percentage increase maybe isn't very high, plus 60% is still pretty decent, and you can combine that with the ease to meet the 3 conditionals to show that overall Ashe is a pretty decent support character, and further solidified by the fact that she now has access to a BT weapon and a very juicy BT aura. That being said, my plans is to actually skip. The main reason for that really is that I'm running low on BT ingots, and I'm not sure whether I want to spare 3 BT ingots for Ashe along with 3 high armor ingots, which I'm also extremely low. Plus, unfortunately for Ashe, she shares the same role as Penelo. I guess somewhat the same role as Penelo in the sense that both of them are aura bot supports, and doesn't mean that Ashe is invalidated. She does have a role to play, and my opinion is it's always nice to do with more than one aura bot support built in your roster. It's just personally for me, I really don't see a lot of situations where I would bring Ashe versus one of my other built aura bot supports. And I guess reflecting on that, I guess one of the other reasons is I'm already pretty comfortable with the number of supports that I have in my roster, so I don't really feel a big urgency to pull for Ashe. The next event will be the Heretic event, featuring a rework for Strago as well as a newly released force weapon for him. His rework, I guess, is okay. He does get a boost in his S1 and S2 and LD damage, but from what I can see, it's still 2 HP dumps for all of these attacks. Don't forget though that when you use Strago, he should be doing 2 attacks a turn because of his LD buff, and if you're not doing 2 attacks a turn with Strago, you're playing him wrong anyway. So in essence, all his attacks are 4 HP dumps, which doesn't sound like a lot, but don't forget that he specializes mainly in AoE damage, and while his attacks may be only at 4 HP dumps with 2 attacks, on the virtue that they are all AoE attacks, he actually does do pretty decent damage in the current meta. On top of that, of course, he has the added utility of being able to re-break enemies through his LD, and that counts for something as well. His newly released Force Weapon also has the re-break capability, and it re-breaks an enemy 3 times when used, once per HP dump and 3 HP dumps in total. In Strago's Force time, you have the Force conditionals where if you do a magic attack you get plus 20%, and if you break or if you're attacking an already broken enemy you get plus 40%. As long as the enemy is not immune to breaks, most of the time you are more or less guaranteed the plus 60%. Obviously you do need to build a little bit around his Force conditional because it does require magical attacks, but it shouldn't be that hard building a magical based party focusing on Strago as the main DPS centerpiece. And while in total it's really only plus 60%, in Strago's Force time, as long as you're also breaking or attacking a broken enemy, you get a very juicy HP damage plus 50% and HP damage cap up plus 50%. If you've seen some of my other videos, especially the ones covering Penelo, you'll notice that I place a lot of emphasis and value on HP damage cap up, because in today's meta, it is actually quite easy to meet the damage ceiling, and so characters who provide an increase in HP damage cap theoretically raises the ceiling, and this drastically increases the damage that you can do in the fight. Overall, Strago is pretty decent as an AoE magic DPS character, but my plans is to also skip this banner. I don't really have a lot of interest in Strago's FR, and I already have all his gear up to his LD. So if I'm gonna use Strago at all, I'll probably just pair him with another FR user, such as Penelo. Coming to Dark Knight Cecil's FRBT arc, the first event there will be Dimension's End Transcendence Tier 13. On this event, Dark Knight Cecil will get a rework and a newly released Burst Weapon and Force Weapon. His rework is actually pretty nice. He gets a rework across S1, S2 and LD, and the damage, or I should say the HP dumps that he can do, seems to be quite high. His LD debuff also lasts 2 turns longer, or 8 turns in total for the duration, which is pretty nice. And overall, if you've used Dark Knight Cecil before, you realize that he does always do pretty good damage each time he gets a rework. But I guess the drawback with him is that he's one of those few characters that sacrifices their HP in order to deal damage, which I guess is in line with his role as a Dark Knight. So he's one of those characters that is sort of like a high risk, high reward play. And his newly released Burst Weapon further cements his role as one that sacrifices HP. His BT does have a very unique effect whereby as long as the BT aura is up, whenever any player character takes a turn, they will suffer HP damage equivalent to 40% of Dark Knight Cecil's attack stat. But the trade-off is that when an enemy takes a turn, they also suffer HP damage, and this time is equivalent to 1200% of Dark Knight Cecil's attack. His BT aura also provides some offensive stats, and the interesting thing about it is that the power or the potency of the offensive stats increases the lower your HP. So when you are below 100% HP, the auras are stronger, and when you drop below 50% HP, then the auras are even stronger. I won't cover the exact potencies, but the offensive stats that his BT aura provides are Brave Damage Cap Up and Brave Damage Up, HP Damage Up and HP Damage Cap Up, and one additional effect whereby when you attack an enemy, you will also heal yourself based off the HP damage dealt, And all of these percentages, like I said, are increased the lower your HP is. Dark Knight Cecile gets a new force weapon. Upon use, it will consume 30% of every party member's HP. His force effects are when you do a dark attack, you get plus 30%. And one big disclaimer here, as far as I know, Dark Knight Cecile does not dark enchant the party. So if other player characters are going to get a turn during Dark Knight Cecile's force time, you may want to consider a dark party enchant. And unfortunately, the only dark party enchant now is Xande. His other two force conditionals are based on your current HP. So if you take a turn when you have less than 100% HP, you get plus 30% to the force conditional, and when you end your turn with less than 50% HP instead, you get an additional plus 20%. In total, you can potentially get plus 80% a turn depending on your HP values. His force effect also provides an additional aura where if your HP is less than 100%, you get a boost to HP damage and HP damage cap up by 20%. All in all, I guess looking at this kit, Dark Knight Cecile really has the potential to dish out tremendous amounts of damage, particularly since he now has access to a BT mode and he can most definitely fulfill all 3 conditionals during his BT mode as well for a juicy plus 80% a turn. As long as you can keep him and your party safe from enemy attacks, the loss of HP shouldn't really matter too much anyway, and in some cases may be beneficial to counteract stuff like HP poison, because HP that is consumed this way does not count as HP damage, and when you lower your HP enough, that means that HP poison more or less doesn't really work on you. One thing to note, we should be getting a rework for Cloud on this event as well, and Cloud's rework is pretty nice overall. Personally, I don't think it shoots him to the top of the meta, but it does have some relevant reworks that will at least increase his utility in the current meta. So first of all, he does get the usual damage rework. His cross slash now does a 50% splash on final hit, and if it's the cross slash plus version, the paralysis is now AoE. It will paralyze all enemies instead of one enemy. His LD skill, Blade Beam, is now an instant turn ability, so you can do stuff like chain multiple Blade Beams together, or go Blade Beam into his finishing touch, or Blade Beam into Cross Slash Plus. He gets a new framed buff called Cloudy Wolf. I can't really remember whether this is a framed buff or his overhead, but regardless, as long as this is up, his Cross Slash Plus version of the attack will always be in play, so you no longer need to spend one turn to convert his Cross Slash to Cross Slash Plus and worry about that. This means that Cloud is, I guess, still putting out somewhat decent damage, but he pairs this with nice utility in the fact that he can now AoE delay all enemies and AoE paralyze all enemies as well, pretty consistently. My plans here is to finally not skip the banner. I probably would have skipped the last few banners before this event, so coming here, I'll probably start throwing some tickets. But I'm actually throwing tickets mainly because Leon is here, and I really want to get Leon's LD. Nothing against Dark Knight Cecile. Obviously, if I get Dark Knight Cecile Force weapon as well, it's going to be pretty sweet. But the main reason why I pull is that I will probably need to start pulling or spending some tickets here so that I can start redeeming some tickets from the co-op shop. But also the fact that I'm missing Leon's LD means that the banner is extra value for me should I decide to throw in my tickets. The last event on Dark Knight Cecile's arc should be Kuja's intersecting wheels, and when I looked at the rework that Kuja gets, I have to say it's probably one of the worst or lamest reworks that we have ever gotten. The change is so minimal that they might as well not give him any rework at all. For one thing, his S1 and S2 remains exactly the same. There are no changes to S1 or S2. His LD still does the same 7 HP dumps if I remember correctly. He does get one additional use of his LD, which I guess is something, and the damage now becomes full AoE damage instead. His BT aura gets a little bit of rework where it now also has a plus 20% HP damage cap up, but otherwise remains the same as it was before. Kuja does get a new force weapon, and the force conditionals are if any player does a holy attack you get plus 20%, and Kuja does have party wide holy enchant, so the first conditional should be a given. If you do an attack that hits AoE enemies, you should get plus 30%, and if Kuja is the one hitting multiple targets, you get an additional plus 20%. In total, you can get up to plus 70% a turn, and since Kuja does have access to a BT mode, this should be something that's fairly easy to meet if you're using him. On top of this, in Kuja's force time, if you're using AoE attacks, you get a plus 10% HP damage and HP damage cap up. Why 10% when someone else like Strago has plus 50%? I have no idea why. They might as well just not give us that at all. And in this entire video, I think these two banners are the easiest skip for me. And it's really sad because I do like Kuja as a character. But at this level of rework, honestly, if I really want an AoE attacker, I might as well still use Rinoa. And even for newer players, I would say it's probably even better to pull for Strago if you really want an AoE magic attacker rather than Kuja. Yes, Strago doesn't have access to a BT weapon, but to me I think that's really a good thing because then you don't have to spend a lot of BT ingots, so it's cheaper to max Strago out. And honestly, you will probably hit higher damage with Strago, especially in his force time when you get plus 50% cap up. On this part of the video, I'll give my opinion on which characters I think you should go for if you are very low on resources, say your gems or tickets, or maybe stuff like BT ingots or high armor ingots. Do note that it's really just an opinion, and everyone's playstyle and roster is going to be a bit different, so as the bottom of the slide mentions, you should always focus on roles that fills gaps in your roster. First of all, in terms of the good value category, and these to me are characters that will provide you value regardless of who else you already have built in your roster, just due to the fact of how powerful they are or how meta they are. This time around, I don't really think that there is any character that fulfills these criteria, so I left the good value category empty. Out of all the characters though, the two that closest fits this criteria would probably be Dark Knight Cecile and Ashe. That's why they are placed more on the left hand side of the role fulfillment category. Dark Knight Cecile would function very well as a Dark Elemental DPS. Whether or not you can stomach the loss of HP when he's in your party is really up to you to decide. Doesn't mean that he's bad. And like I said earlier in the video, in some fights it may actually be beneficial to sacrifice your HP to Dark Knight Cecile. Next to him we have Ashe. Now they don't really actually go well together because their force conditionals are different, so when I put them here doesn't mean that I'm suggesting you to build a party with both of them in it. But Ashe is also pretty decent as an aura bot support. Her force conditionals are pretty easy to meet, but you do have to do some sort of attack to meet her first two conditionals. But in the right party, and if you combine her current auras plus her BT aura, she does do very nice as a support character, and the fact that she now can burst heal with her BT is something pretty sweet as well. Moving along further to the right, I think these are characters who to me is a lower priority, and the two characters there are Cloud and Strago. Cloud isn't really a true DPS character, but that's mainly because his kit provides quite a lot of additional utility as well. He will now provide AoE paralysis, and he has the 2-turn AoE delay, which is quite nice now given that it's instant turn. If you somehow find that you do need this sort of character, and maybe for example if you did pull on Jesse, Cloud does do pretty well with Jesse's FR because his Blade Beam LD provides the 2-turn delay for one of the force conditionals, and it is also a range attack which fulfills another conditional in Jesse's force time. Personally though, same reason as with Jesse, I don't really place a lot of value on turn delay and disables in the current meta, because majority of the fights you can just charge up your force gauge and blow up the bosses before they get a turn. And if you can do that, then why do you even bother with paralysis and turn delay? Strago is okay. I guess to me, Strago is one of those characters where you don't have to invest too much to fully build him, and you can always throw him in one of the lockout events where you need a somewhat competent or decent DPS, and if you do that, he does serve you well. And I guess on that virtue, his return of investment is pretty okay. But that being said, there's a lot of great options for AoE DPS now. Even Penelo can dish out pretty decent damage in her BT mode. So if you don't feel a strong need or urgency to get another DPS character, then Strago is really an easy skip. And finally, on the right hand side, I put Kuja, and really he doesn't even deserve to be here, and that's why I put a red cross on him. Now, nothing against Kuja as a character, but just looking at his kit, let me tell you, you should just skip Kuja altogether. He doesn't really bring a lot to the table, and you might as well spend your gems and tickets and BT ingots in one of the other characters. I'm still kind of hoping that maybe the devs will throw in a nice little surprise and give us a bit more of a rework in Kuja's kit. And if they do that, then I will do another video on his event to do a new evaluation. But assuming if he gets the same rework as JP did, it's really a very sad rework for Kuja. So that's it for this video. In summary, it's pretty simple in terms of my plans. I plan to spend tickets for Dark Knight Cecile and Leon, and I will be actually probably skipping everything else, mainly because also I spent quite a lot in Penelo's arc and I want to recoup some of my tickets and really reap Kuja. As always, I hope the video has been helpful, and if you enjoyed the content, do leave a like, comment and subscribe because it really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next pool plan video. Bye!